Hi everyone. Hope you're having a good time in this security conference. Thanks for having me here, Ray, Paula. It's my first time in B-Sites and my first time in a security conference, so I'm a bit excited, right? Today, thank you. So, my topic for today is secure coding, DevSecOps versus SecDevOps. As they may seem to be the same thing, and an integration within developing security and operations, there's still some distinction between them, and obviously we're going to determine, in my perspective, what is the best approach to a more secure ecosystem. So, okay, let's get on every single one of the topics on itself, starting with coding. Basically, coding today is like air. We have it everywhere, right? Every single, let's say, device, every single thing, it's based on coding, and it's going to be like that for a long time. So it has solved many problems, modern, old problems, and it's going to do that still. It drives innovation. Obviously, we're looking at, especially lately with artificial intelligence, self-driving cars, and these are like pretty innovative. But still, there is a need for, let's say, securing this type of practice. Starting next with DevOps, which, any DevOps here or developers? No? Okay. Nice, good. So we're on the same page. I mean, we have some conflicts, but we still love each other, you know. So DevOps is about automation. It's fairly a new term, I would say, per my experience, like in the last 10 years, maybe less, but yeah, it has helped a lot in modernizing the methodologies that applications are taking from, let's say, from initial stages to production. In different methodologies, like before we had Agile or Waterfall, they were pretty good initially, right? DevOps helped in improving those methodologies, actually giving more speed in the release schedules, and as well improved collaboration within the operations team and the developing team. Yes, and security. Yeah, security I think is last in this equation, which is essentially the most important one, because data needs to be secured, right? And let's say, developers and operations focus on their own, let's say, tasks rather than security. Yeah, and security, cyber threats. So everything, every vulnerability, every data exfiltration, or every attack that has happened initially has led to some, let's say, major leaks, which have affected multiple organizations or let's say, reputation, obviously, big cash loss, etc. We need security, let's say, integrated in these two processes for three reasons, obviously. Starting with securing the data. Let's say, I'm gonna speak more for that later, but basically encrypting, better performance regarding security, and third, I would say, let's say client reliability, I would say. So they know that their data is secure, and obviously they can use and they can share the data safely between different environments. Okay, next, let's talk about secure coding. We didn't have much developers, but in regards to making code secure, I completely agree that developers are not out-of-the-box security practitioners. Like, their initial responsibility is not implementing best security practices, because that would obviously slow them down. But still, secure coding, yeah, that writing code in a high-level language that follows strict principles, obviously with the intention of preventing, as I mentioned earlier, potential vulnerabilities in apps, in later development, or cause harm in data and in different systems. Best practices. So there are quite a few practices that can help in the securing the development, DevOps generally, but specifically for development in this topic. First things, don't trust the user. Some of the best practices that obviously developers can use are the first one, which is the first interaction from the applications or different systems with the users are don't trust the users. Input validation, output encoding, basically. So the way that the data input from users is validated to, let's say, to know how the backend system will filter specific malicious requests, like I would mention SQL injection or SSRF or cross-site scripting, etc. Cryptography. Well, as we know, cryptography has been around for a while, obviously some being deprecated, some being very old, some being vulnerable and easily hackable. So getting the cryptography right. So from the initial side of the, let's say from coding perspective, data should be encrypted. Data should be encrypted every time, of course, because if a middleman or a hacker would get access to that specific code, let's say, or data without being encrypted, it would lead to a bigger, let's say, affection or critical, let's say, critical data loss to that company. Keep it secure and simple. So every application should do at least 3 of these. I've mentioned only these 3. There's way more, but these ones, in my perspective, seem more important. Authentication, obviously, making sure, like, I'm basically trying to get to the zero trust principle in this, just for this part. Authentication, session management, and obviously passwords. Every application obviously should have these 3. They would lead to obviously less attacks happening or less user errors if these 3 practices are done correctly. And I'm going to be short for the next ones, just for the sake of time. Threat model, and for threat modeling our softwares, obviously, for data protection and communication security. Doing a threat modeling during the process or initially for the product that is going to be built from a specific developing team. It's important. That will help you or will ease the task of the security team eventually to, let's say, to secure the architecture of each application. Automation is our friend. Yes, I'll talk about that in the DevOps and that part of thing, which is obviously going to help developers in more, like, let's say, getting across that agile or waterfall model to have a more rapid product release, right? Yeah, and establish level of trust, automate responses. That would still fall under the DevOps procedure. I'm going to talk on the last slide. Next slide. Yep, DevOps. Completely important procedure, but in my perspective as a cybersecurity analyst, of course, security is missing. And in this infinity box, infinity loop, we need security somewhere in there, in the middle, in the beginning, in the end. It matters which position it is, but for this, not at this point, right? DevOps. Okay, so help the, let's say, what's DevOps? DevOps is a methodology that helps the development team and different companies or teams to actually have a quicker release time for their products, helping in managing in change management for their code releases or for their entire development process, which obviously and drives more collaboration within the teams, reduces release cycles. Whenever newer features are set to be released, it would help in easing that process, of course, because developers won't have to directly work with a designated IT team member, right? The way it used to be before. So kind of a better approach. Improved collaboration, as I mentioned. Break down silos, different teams, as it was before. Development team, operations team, always fighting with each other. Do this, do that, don't do this. That's kind of bad approach in regards to communication and collaboration, of course. So yeah, benefits. Accelerated time to the market, as I mentioned. Time is money, right? Every company would agree on that. So helping in releasing the application to market the quickest, and obviously with improved with most features already developed, etc. That would help the companies, because basically every company is out there for the money, meaning that applications help them automate and ease their work processes, their business processes, to achieve their goals. Yeah. Yep. Now, a bad joke from ChatGPT. Why did the DevOps engineer become a magician? Because they could make security disappear faster than you can say abracadabra. And I say that from experience, okay? Because they don't like security generally, so yeah. But it's a must. Now security. Being in security has, has helped me get a better understanding of this process. It's relatively new. There has always been, code review. There has always been vulnerability assessments in coding every time. There has always been QA, right, quality assurance for functionality, be it security. But there has never been a defined process how to do it, or which is the best methodology to do it. Because every aspect of security in the last decade or 2 decades is shifting left, right? We're shifting towards security because we're seeing that happen, right? We're seeing breaches every day. We're seeing loss of money, loss of reputation from companies, and it all starts with code. It all starts with code. Basically, every application, every single platform that employees, that companies use starts with coding. And if we, in my perspective, if we start securing that environment since the very start, it would help in mitigating not all of these, because there's not something like 100% secure, but at least, decreasing it, right? So, in adding security in DevOps, some practices that would be good to automate, of course, add automated security tests and scans in that process, specifically for DevSecOps, because I will tell the difference from both of them soon. And so it helps. Adding security in DevOps will help in detecting the issues or the code vulnerabilities in real time, right? So that would cause less downtime in specific products and make the release process faster. And of course, collaboration. As I mentioned earlier, the DevOps concept gives quite a good collaboration between the developer and the operations team. But adding the security in the bigger window will help ease that process, as everyone will be on the same page. And obviously, as we know, security is a shared responsibility for everyone, because if it's just a security team in a company, then we're screwed. Challenges. So there are challenges, of course. Promoting security, not a lot of users are security masters, right? It's basically a new term. I would say new term when I mention from year 2000 and now, it's like the best period of cybersecurity where it's being focused, I would say even the last 15 years, but I'm just expanding it. Tool integration. Tools help a lot. We can never have as many people as we want to actually do all the processes manually. It's hard. It's time spending, is financial spending, and companies do not want to spend a lot on security. We know that, right? Speed versus security. If it's just DevOps, I'm in the perspective where I think that the release process will be quite faster, because it doesn't matter if they're using, I would say old libraries, or they're using bad coding practices. It will just be, code, make sure it works, and then push it to production. That's pretty quick, right? But there needs to be a balance, because if that would happen all the time, then we would have breaches every second, right? So integrating security into into that equation would be great, but always a balance. We cannot have much security and less, let's say, less reliability and speed. There needs to be a balancing there. Skill gaps. It's like, in my experience, I've noticed that the best role for this kind of field is application security. From different communities, I've noticed that application security do deal a lot with securing applications, be them work with development teams as well as operation teams. So, but it's quite a, in my perspective, new role in like last 5-10 years per my experience, and there is a skill gap there. Obviously, it needs lots of expertise. It needs experience in all the security domains, be it network initially, then coding, and then obviously security. That's something that requires a lot of experience. Not just, you cannot learn that in schools, right? Yeah. Need for integration. Well, integrating these solutions all together would be cost effective, of course, because you would basically ease the release time. If you dealt with security initially, it means that during the process you don't have to actually implement security checks, which would obviously not take back, let's say, the production release date or something like that. Compliance. We have a lot of compliance nowadays, right? It has been around for a while, but regarding security, a lot of compliance around, be it PCI DSS, be it GDPR, be it, I don't know, you mentioned it. Everyone wants compliance. And it helps with business as well, business relations. Nowadays, if you want to do business with a company, like with a serious company, they will ask you, are you compliant to this certification? I'm just saying ISO 27002. No, okay, bye. Threat mitigation, continuous improvement, and streamlined workflow. All three of these will help the security team more specifically and the developing team in making a final, more secure product. Okay. DevSecOps. Can DevSecOps principle help? That's a good question. I'm very positive regarding DevSecOps. It's not my favorite one, but as I've mentioned here, integrating DevSecOps is easier in the process and less, let's say, less costly, because you can actually focus on focus on the product more than the security. So that's not the best practice when it comes to security, but it will help in maintaining efficiency. Anyway, it will not slow down development and deployment process, right? The good thing is that you will have, collaborative responsibility. DevSecOps obviously emphasizes shared responsibility with all teams, be it operations, be it development. It can, it can be the middleman in making that process friendlier, in applying best practices regarding the code on the application, as well as applying the best security principles when releasing the product. Still, you can make real progress with DevSecOps, but because it balances everything, right? Automation, you can automate a lot of processes actually in DevSecOps, and that's a good thing. We're going to talk about SecDevOps in the next slide, but this is the main, in my perspective, the main good thing or priority over SecDevOps for DevSecOps. I'm just playing around here. They're basically the same thing. They just change, like priority changes. Are we prioritizing applications? Are we prioritizing, let's say, efficiency, or are we prioritizing security and threats and data loss and what be it, right? Keep KPIs for improvement. Yeah, so as I mentioned, it measures success through keep KPIs, which is obviously a good time. Like if there is a vulnerability in one step of the development prior to releasing to production, security will stop it. Right? It will say, okay, this will go back to to whatever, to a development team to fix that SQL injection vulnerability or that vulnerable library. So it's a good thing, right? And they're gonna, let's say, they're gonna have a common language. You'll have to go through security one step at a time, right? You have to. You can't miss it, and that's a good thing. It obviously will foster a common language, which will help in having that understanding towards all the domains, be it development, operations, and security. Now, this is my favorite. Okay, I'm a security guy, so I obviously prioritize this one. Why is that? It has its own fallbacks, but generally, let's say, for new companies or new applications, this would be the best approach. Why? Because it obviously places security on the first, and takes security in consideration, making every decision from a security standpoint. So even in the initial product architecture, let's say there is no product, there is zero code, no lines, right? We start with security. Are we going to build this app? Yeah. What's the best, most secure architecture to build this app? This workflow, this app, this thing. In my perspective, this is the best approach because obviously you will have security in mind since the first steps. Make those decisions. Prioritize security as much as the actual steps of integrating security into the DevOps, but of course in that security focused always. And yeah, I would say I'm gonna mention that below, but most developers, as I said, are not security experts, right? They will need education. They will need training, of course. They will need to get that mindset that security is important. And from my experience, I can tell that most developers don't care about security. The only ones that do are the ones that are actually shifting to application security. And it's a real challenge for us. I believe that everyone here or whoever is dealing with or dealing with developers or vulnerability management regarding code has had that challenge someday, right? It's kind of and that's why I think securing, starting with SecDevOps would be the best approach. You can manage risks as well, and eliminate it since the beginning. That will obviously even reduce let's say the application release, because I'm going to take the DevSecOps, right? If there is, let's say we configure the code entirely, right? Every line of code is written. Now we're going to go through security. A vulnerability arises through an automated scan, right? Oh, take it back to developers. Why? If you integrate that security in every step from the beginning towards, let's say, every day of whatever developer codes, it will ease that release time. It's hard initially because it's going to take some investment and some, let's say, time from all the teams, but obviously it will cause less interruptions throughout the release process. As I mentioned, potential pitfalls is only it can it can easily focus on vulnerabilities that probably could not be there or are false positives. Like, as I said, it can spend a lot of time initially to secure architecture that application, but it can lead, as I mentioned, to a security theater, right? We're going to focus too much on security. We don't want that. We want security and efficiency, but primary security, of course, because too much security, then everything will basically sometimes not work. And yeah, it will obviously influence the mindset of the development team and the operations team, but it will, in my perspective, will give that security mindset to all people, right? To all, at least, teams, which is good, because today we're looking that everything is, as I can give you an example. Let's say DevSecOps, right? We have that in an airport. We go through an airport, we go through check-in, and then we go through the control where you have to take everything off, take your belt off, even take your shoes off. That's basically a SecDevOps practice. there are like 0.1 chances that there will be some bomb under your shoe, right? But still, that one, as the colleague mentioned earlier, red team has to be right just one time, right? So you better be safe than sorry. And yeah, some differences that would be between DevSecOps and SecDevOps. SecDevOps obviously places equal emphasis on both development and security, while SecDevOps leans toward development and application release money, basically. Timing, yeah. SecDevOps does integrate security from the start, and obviously that helps in building a more secure application fundamentally in the architecture. And while DevSecOps will attempts to include security, but obviously may face challenges, as I mentioned earlier, regarding different vulnerabilities that can come out during the release cycle. So integration and involvement. SecDevOps will consider security in every step of an application development, which will basically need dedicated security team, obviously, or dedicated application security persons throughout that cycle, because it's obviously a long cycle and sometimes it can take a lot of resources, but it's a must. Automation. Both focus on automation. I would say SecDevOps emphasizes automation of more security solutions. It will need more tools. I agree on that. It will have more cost. It needs more people. It needs, let's say, more collaboration with the teams, but the final product will be worth it, right? It can be costly initially when you set a baseline regarding application security, but then development is an ongoing process, right? So you'll have that baseline for one product, then you have that for all the other products. We'll obviously reduce the costs with the passing of time. I have a saying from the great Ken Thompson. He's the creator of Unix. You can trust code that you did not totally create yourself. I'm saying just for code, but if you, I'm gonna take it in a bigger, expand, like even security solutions or operational technology or whatever that has to, that can be related with DevOps and security within. So we have to keep it fun and safe. Of course, we don't want to be much of an overhead. Security is always an overhead. I get that all the time, right? Most of you understand me, I'm sure. But eventually, it becomes like when you have that right mindset and that right approach to it, it can become fun as well as safe. So these are the, let's say, the recaps for why we need security integrated, be it DevSecOps or SecDevOps. Early risk mitigation, cost efficiency. Of course, because it will, let's say, if no one wants breaches, right? An estimated breach in 2023 would be around $20 million, just saying, right? An SMB or a small to medium-sized business would not afford that. We're seeing companies that are going bankrupt because of actual breaches, right? So we need that cost efficiency to be at its best, starting with code security. Threat mitigation, compliance, reputation and trust. Reputation and trust is very important on what I said. Mitigating threats since the early stages. So we have a lot of APTs out there, a lot of hackers that are trying to basically get their profit out of every company or application. Training and monitoring. Training developers and operation team members to have that shift left mindset. That would help security teams a lot in improving the overall security posture of be it application, companies, and people. Yeah, and risk management. We need to balance security and development objectives always. I might be a security focused guy, but always we want that efficiency in a company because we wouldn't be working if the company wouldn't be making money. So, but still, focusing on that security mindset would help us and every team member, even the company in different aspects, be it protecting from, let's say, from hackers, from attacks, make the release schedule for new features, for new products way easier. I believe that would be a good practice. And yeah, that's it. Any questions? make sure it's strong, right?
Okay. Just for short notice, I work as a DevOps, and I wanted to add a strong point to what you said. You said that most of the DevOps practices are not built safe. I just want to add that most of the GitOps platforms nowadays doesn't let you to push code into production. If you are planning to do an enterprise, they don't let you by default to push code into production without putting some scanners. Mm-hmm. So they do static analysis on your code. They do. You can also integrate dynamic analysis on your code. So they try to block this. If you are using some GitOps practice, that's SecDevOps already built in it. Yep. So the new GitOps doesn't let you by default to push unsecure code into production.
Totally agree. Like as I said, let's say highly specialized companies who have the actual, let's say, actual funds and actual budget to afford GitHub, as you mentioned, or be it AWS, or doesn't matter. It's good. I love GitHub. It is shifting left a lot towards that SecDevOps practice, and it's good for DevOps as well, for developers at minimum, because it doesn't give them all those red flags all the time. So yeah, I've noticed that. I think that's a new feature in GitHub. It's like 2 years.
It's not only on GitHub.
No, obviously,
also use GitLab and GitLab Ops. It's also the same. Also, the GitLab, it's since the moving to DevOps perspective has moved to with SecOps in mind.
Is Azure catching up, or Azure DevOps? They're focusing on GitHub.
That's a different story. We mostly here are Linux guys.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions, or no? Okay. Oh, okay.
Thanks. Interesting talk. When you talked about secure coding training for the developers, did you encounter any sort of training needs around interpreting tool outputs?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last sentence?
Did the developers have training needs to interpret the output of the tools?
I will think about that for developers in my company, They probably need to do that. But yeah, no, as I mentioned even earlier, development teams need that training. Developer teams, they need the security training. In my perspective, it's a must, not in regards to just, let's make that product secure, but every company nowadays, every, let's say, prestigious company or big company is requiring security by default. So if you're a developer and you don't have, I would not say advanced best secure coding practices, but just those initial baselines, right? You do input validation. Let's say you parameterize or those SQL queries, whatever be it, right? Just basic things, I'm not thinking the bigger picture. If you don't have that, I think it's part of, even nowadays, interviewing a developer nowadays, what do you think about this security practice, right? Or this and that. So it's, in my perspective, it should be a process in developers taking these trainings. Definitely. Thank you. Thank you.